I don't want to die. I want to come back with the answers to death and life. I need you to bring me back.
I have no interest in watching you kill yourself.
Why are you doing this? To see if there's anything out there beyond death. It is reckless, immoral, and unethical.
Today's a good day to die.
I'm going next.
Nobody is going next. It's too dangerous.
We can't turn back now. I'm going further.
1,000. 2,000. You're not real. Got her. Don't have her. That's all I paid my dues. Flatline.
Flatliners. Some lines shouldn't be crossed.
I am from beyond. Listen, and all you desire will be yours. Welcome to Spider-Dan and the Secret Wars. Prepare for Prattle. Shockphobia Fest.
Welcome to Prattle World. I am your host, the ever-amazing, ever-spectacular Spider-Dan. And in this podcast, I spotlight entertainment's best-kept secrets that a mainstream audience may find boring. And welcome to Shockphobia Fest, a month-long celebration of All Hallows Eve's most frightening films and comic spooks. And I'm back once again. You guys have voted for another absolute banger. You guys have voted for Joel Schumacher's 1990 sci-fi thriller, or fantasy, you decide, Flatliners. Another mad scientist. We've been covering a lot of mad scientists lately, here in February, January time, whenever I'm recording. And yes, you guys overwhelmingly chose this, so I think we may have a few fans out there in the patrons. So yeah, I've been talking a lot about Joel Schumacher recently. He's one of the first kind of openly gay, successful, like popular Hollywood kind of filmmakers, which, out there. And again, not in the kind of underground or kind of cult scene. He was, not like a John Waters type, though John Waters has become quite mainstream anyway. But he was huge. Lost Boys was a big thing. Sarah Coyne was telling me today that the reason he got Phantom of the Opera, which didn't come out till 2005, I want to say, and which he is talking about in a 1990 interview with this film, he got that off the back of Lost Boys, but it didn't get made for God knows how many years. But it was going to have the original casting, like Michael Crawford and whoever the female lead was in that as well. I'm blanking on the name. But I feel bad for Joel Schumacher because he gets kind of a bad rap. Everyone remembers Batman and Robin, but they don't remember the rest of his filmography. The films like Tigerland, Falling Down, Phone Booth, 8mm, St. Elmo's Fire, Time to Kill. Like, there are some absolute bangers in his filmography, but all we ever fucking talk about is that one time that Batman got a bit camp, got a bit wild. And again, I think that film is enjoyable. It's cheesy and it's so bad it's good kind of enjoyability, but that's kind of what the studio wanted. They didn't want the kind of the Tim Burton stuff. They were like, no, we've got to sell it to kids. We can't have penguins with black goo coming out of their mouths and groping women and being corrupt politicians. We can't have that. We've got to have the nicer, more family friendly. We want to sell toys is basically what they wanted to do. And he did that, and kind of Batman Forever, I think, is fairly decent bridging of those two worlds to a point while still doing its own thing. And then again, this is the thing with movie studios, is if a film is fairly successful or does fairly well, or they like it, or they're happy with working with these people, they'll go, much like they did with Tim Burton, they went, oh, that was really successful. Do whatever you want. Wonder Woman was really successful. Do whatever you want, which I think is the danger. And I don't know why Warner Bros. Does this. They just give them carte blanche on this instead of kind of reining them in and going, maybe don't have nipples on the Batsuit. Maybe don't do this. Maybe don't have that. Maybe don't have a horny Chase Meridian kind of, rubbing herself every chance she gets to be Batman next to Batman and rubbing the hot kind of leather and rubber and like ooh. But yeah, that's another film for another discussion. But I get why people don't like those films, because I mostly, for the most part, don't like them either. But again, I can see why people enjoy them and love them for what they are. But again, his filmography. Again, 8mm, phone booth, falling down. Come on, like just even a handful of these films are better than most other directors' entire filmographies. Like just any of those, you pick any of those. Like we still talk about Falling Down. We still talk about so many of his films. Even some of the films he wrote before, like he wrote The Wiz, which was the the Motown Wizard of Oz musical. He wrote Sparkle as well, which is again another black-led disco musical. I think it was Donna Summer, I think, who was in that. Again, really big kind of names and popular at the time. So he's had a heck of a career. And yeah, unfortunately, he did pass away not so long ago. But I really hope people don't just remember him for Batman and Robin. And he even apologized. You don't hear many directors going out of their way to say, yeah, I made a bad film. I'm really, really sorry. It was wrong. It was bad. If it upset, but this is what I wanted to create. This is what I wanted to do. That's my Joel Schumacher rant over. There are some excellent films out there. I've still not even seen his entire filmography, so there could be loads more that I haven't seen that are just as good as the ones I've mentioned already. Again, so Almost Fire I like, but the characters are mostly arseholes. I think I described it as if it's the Breakfast Club if they grew up to be arseholes. But it was interesting. It's different, and again gave birth to the whole Brat Pack idea and these young up and coming stars. And speaking of young up and coming stars, this film is absolutely full of them. Now, I do have quite a soft spot for this film anyway. It's one of the first DVDs I ever bought when I was starting to kind of branch out and buy my own things and films and stuff when I was an early teenager. And I thought this really grabbed me. I knew all the actors and I liked the premise. The idea seemed interesting. The blue lighting and the light kind of shining through them sounded cool. The kind of theological exploration of our sins, whether we've been good or evil, how will we be judged, what kind of afterlife are we going to, will we be with our family or friends, our loved ones, will we be somewhere that's not quite as nice, that has boys we've murdered or people we've bullied and things like that. It grabbed me, kind of, again, that kind of early teen mind. And I've not watched it for quite some time, and I watched it back to back with the remake, in fact, which again I don't think I feel as strongly negatively towards it as some people do, but it is an absolute example of let's do a reboot remake. Don't cast it as well, don't shoot it as well, and make it bland as fuck. Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. The actors are phoning it in, or it's a very bland kind of generic looking cast. I did a review of it recently on Letterboxd if you want to have a look that up, the remake. But yeah, it's not one that will stay in my memory very long. I will forget about this by next week. There were some things I liked about it, which I might go into in a little bit, but on the most part, it doesn't kind of hold a candle to this film. And this film has its problems. I can understand why people wouldn't like this film as well, but I think in comparison, this one absolutely smashes it. So yeah, so it is if you've never seen it before, Flatliners is a group of med students it's always med students, isn't it? Like Reanimator, Frankenstein, it's always fucking med students going mad. And they decide that they want to see what Kiefer Sutherland's character, Nelson, wants to see what happens when we die. So he wants to be effectively medically safely flatlined. So he wants his heart to stop, his brain to stop, and to see what happens after death. There's all these there's a lot of examples and descriptions in the opening of the film, which are very handy. And Julia Roberts' character is talking to people and saying what their experiences are. And apparently these are based on real people's experiences, which is fascinating as well. Bright lights and feeling comfort, feeling warmth, feeling welcome. But then other people have, people who commit suicide have apparently worse experiences, or attempted suicide have worse experiences because they're in a kind of an emotional, I don't know, negative space maybe, who knows. Again, I'm agnostic, so I don't know what the situation would be. I'd like to think there's an afterlife. I'd like to believe there's, a nice place where I get to see everybody again, and and not be judged for my sins, hopefully. But not that I've committed any, really. Not really, none of the big ones. But yeah, I think it's a fascinating kind of question, and I love the kind of imagery in the film where they use these kind of big kind of these murals of very kind of Sistine Chapel, I should say, where it's all kind of God touching the finger and all that sort of stuff, and some religion, this like Promethean fire being stolen on one of the murals, very gothic, and this abandoned part of the kind of the university which they use. Joel Schumacher described it as he wanted it to feel not realistic in terms of the concept, the idea, more of a parable or a fable or fairy tale, the kind of aspect. It's more theatrical he wanted it to be. Again, the character and the stories are very real and the ideas are very real, but I think he was worried that he might, if he took it super seriously, that he might offend somebody, however they land, if they're an atheist or if they believe in something. I think he was trying to not outwardly offend people. So if you're looking for an answer if there is an afterlife or if there isn't, the film doesn't really answer it, but kind of does, I guess, if there's sins. So the idea of this, again, is that these med students are experimenting, and then they're bringing themselves back to know what the experience of dying is, or what the afterlife is, or what is beyond it. And they record everything. They've got a video camera and taking all the details and notes and things. And one by one, they try this. And one by one, they come back and they feel great. There's a couple of lines about him feeling and hearing things and being more alive and awake than he ever has been in his life, which the remake explores that to the point where it's like horny and an allegory for metaphor for drug use, drug culture, which again is a choice, not one I found that interesting or compelling at all, but it's a choice. So yeah, and eventually they find that their sins are following them home, basically, and attacking them physically or tormenting them, or you name it. There's apparitions and realities being skewed, and they're seeing things and hallucinating, what have you. Yeah, so that's the premise of the film. It's really strong, really interesting. I think the script, again, it might be a bit thin. The characters might be a little bit thin as well. They don't go too much into the kind of science of what happens and how it works. That's probably, again, for the best. I think if they did go with a super highly realistic, medical take, I think you could lose some of that sense of wonderment or intrigue, or the atmosphere. The atmosphere and the cinematography is amazing here. Jean de Bont, who would go on to become a director in his own right, is the cinematographer on this. And again, not to compare directly, but the 2017 remake reboot is bland as a 2017 or 2010 thing can be. That's as bland as that thing looks. It's never interesting. Even the flatline sequences are really dull. But here we're like seeing cornfields. We're rushing through, people's memories and lives. And there's a moment where I think Billy Baldwin's he experiences kind of this almost like a rebirth, like he's born again. He's sucking on the breast of his mother, and then he meets all of these women, all the women he's ever loved, kind of thing. And each person's experience is very different. I would kind of like to have seen maybe a more, I don't know, negative one, but I guess the negative stuff comes afterwards. But they all have a slightly different variation on what they experience because they're different people. Kevin Bacon plays an atheist, as someone who's just been kicked out of med school for breaking the rules. He's been put on he's got a scholarship, but he's been put on probation or suspended or whatever they call it. So yeah, and he's unsure about the whole thing. He's probably the moral kind of compass in the film. He doesn't agree with it, but he's interested in it, and he's one of the best doctors there, so he's the only one who can kind of bring people back, really. So they kind of get him into it. And that's kind of like Diego Luna's character in the remake. But yeah, he's interesting. I don't think the chemistry between him and Julia Roberts is there, personally, for their kind of more romantic scenes and moments. I feel like it's just kind of just awkward, and then they have sex. So there's that, which I don't think entirely works for me. But yeah, that's one of my kind of nitpicks with the film. It kind of reminds me of like a thinking man's Nightmare on Elm Street, because we have these moments where they're in the real world and then they're in these kind of hallucinations or dreams or whatever you want to call them, and then the color shifts. You have these dark, foreboding kind of blue hues when something bad's going to happen. You have the kind of Nelson killed a child that he bullied, who fell out a tree and died after he was throwing rocks at him, and injured I think it was his own dog he injures as well. Yeah, so Billy Mahoney, who is really super creepy in this. Yeah, I really like the Billy Mahoney sequences. They really work. They really are quite creepy. I wouldn't say this, again, I'd say this is more of a thriller than a horror film. Again, nobody really dies. I mean, they do die on the flatline table, but I mean, like, permanently, the spirits or ghosts don't make them, die completely, which again is something I preferred in the remake. Even the remake might not even be a remake, because there was a deleted scene where Kiefer Sutherland's character is revealed to be Nelson from the original film, but he's got a new name, or presumed name, because of all the things he's gotten up to maybe in the past. A thing as well about the sins, which is like, for some reason, I always thought it'd be more interesting if you died and you brought back the spirit of someone maybe that you knew or loved, and you took them out of the afterlife of their peace, because you wanted to see them again or talk to them again, and it was kind of a selfish act to do that, to bring them out, and just to satisfy your own need to be with somebody again, and then they would start haunting them. I thought that was maybe a better idea than sins. Maybe I don't know. Again, it's up to you. I think the sins thing worked, but I always thought, oh, is it not? I think I may have read the back very briefly of the DVD and went, that sounds okay. I think they talked about hauntings or something else, but yeah, I was like, I always thought maybe that would be a more interesting concept, that you have to kind of let them go and let the grief go, or it's gonna haunt you, like it gives you a physical representation to the grief. I thought that might be an interesting idea as well. But yeah, maybe that's a third Flatliners movie they could explore. The thing about the sins as well is some of them are a bit bland or minor. The scene with Kevin Bacon where he's being cussed out by the girl he used to kind of swear at and bully, and then he goes later to... It's interesting that he's the atheist and he figures out that atonement might be the way to stop being tormented by these images, and to forgive yourself and to be forgiven is the way to kind of stop the hauntings. So it's interesting that he figures that out, as opposed to all the kind of people who say they're religious or believe in God. So yeah, like, his is a bit, it's a bit weak, I think, as a sin. I kind of think that's another thing I like about the remake, is that the sins are actually genuinely quite terrible things, most of them. So the only one who doesn't really have a sin is Diego Luna's character, because he never goes under. So yeah, that's one thing I thought was better here. Like, I think bullying a kid, yeah, it's quite bad, and it can affect people. I was bullied, but I don't imagine someone's going to come up to my door and say, oh yeah, 20 years ago I used to bully you, and say you had a big fucking head, and I'd be like, right, okay. People used to try and add me on Facebook. People used to bully me. I was like, I'm not fucking spending any time with you. You're a cunt. Maybe I should atone. Maybe I should forgive them. Yeah, maybe I should forgive them, or I'm going to be visited by those sins again. But there you have it. There you have it. But yeah, I kind of feel like that's a little weak. Again, I think it's less about them being sins, but more that they take responsibility for them. Like Julia Roberts' dad, who's a war veteran, who's shooting up heroin, she discovers him doing that, and then he goes outside and shoots himself. Her mother implies that it's her fault, so therefore she takes on the responsibility. Nelson, again, technically is his fault, because he throws rocks at a kid, hits him in the head, he falls out of a tree, and the kid dies. So arguably that is his responsibility, but it was something he did as a kid. It was a mistake. He regrets it. He went through the ringer. He said, haven't I paid my dues? Screaming at the grave of Billy Mahoney. Great scene. But then there's probably the most deplorable of the sins in this is that Billy Baldwin is filming the women he has sex with. He's a pussy hound, whatever you want to call him, serial shagger. He is filming women and they are unaware of it. And he's filming them and he's looking at the camera, he's winking. This was something he did in Slither as well, the erotic thriller with Sharon Stone that they made. There is not really any... I mean, he does face some consequences. He admits it to the rest of the med students, why he's been haunted, what his sins are. And again, all these sins from everybody else are when they were a child. So they've obviously learned and grown up and become more moral people. He's still fucking doing this, like, up to the minute, and he's even trying to do it after he's been flatlined and comes back. He tries to convince another woman to come round to his place so he can shag and film them, until, like, he sees one of the previous women that he's videotaped on a TV during a Halloween section. So it is set on Halloween, guys. However briefly, it is set on Halloween. But he is the character that I even then when I was when I watched it, so I must have been like 13, 14, I thought, fucking hell, that's pretty deplorable. That's pretty bad. And right now in 2025, it's worse, if anything. I mean, it always was bad, but it's framed as being bad. It's not framed as being a good thing that he's doing. And his wife his fiance finds out and says, these women trusted you and you broke that trust. How can I trust you? She breaks up with him. She breaks it off. Who's played by, I think it's Hope Davis, who would go on to be Tony Stark's mum. Of all the characters in the film, I was like, well, he's going to fucking die. He has to die. He's doing the worst thing, and he's doing it, and he's done it for the longest, and he's done it to more people. So surely, if there's anybody in this film that has to die, it must be him. Nobody dies. Again, they flatline, they come back, but nobody actually dies. And again, like they're very worried that if somebody dies on the table, that they're going to lose, their scholarships, and they're going to be kicked out of the university. But he doesn't have to die there. Like in the new one, 2017's one. Spoilers: Elliot Page's character dies. And you need that. You need at least one person to die, I think, in this. Somebody that has to be the point, I think, that, again, it is there's a lot of kind of there's a nice feeling, a warm feeling, and Schumacher talks about how life-affirming this film is. He wanted it to be. He wanted people to know that he believes, he doesn't know, but he believes there's something that is fundamentally a good place where you're going, or it's going to be a release or a soothing experience to die. He was inspired to do this film because he was filming an AIDS documentary where he kind of interviewed people and talked to people and talked about their experiences and almost dying and again the kind of soothing aspect of death and the acceptance of that, which is beautiful. And this is kind of what he's playing with as well. I will say when again it's edited very strangely, this sequence, which I didn't particularly like. I wish they'd kind of just shown it, but Julia Roberts' dad runs out into the road and shoots himself. Apparently does he get in his car? Because there's a bullet hole that is on the back seat of the car, and then there's blood on the inside of the glass. So I'm thinking, again, it's edited very strange. This is the one section where I'm like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. It's kind of, again, you're not supposed to fully know what's going on, but I think they could have, again, it's the continuity could have been better, so I could kind of get a sense. But I'm pretty sure he shoots himself in the street, but then, why is he on the back seat of the car? I'm pretty sure you don't see him go in the car. You don't hear the door close or him open the car. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But yeah, it was just a very oddly edited scene where I was like, how can the blood be on the outside? Why would he go into the street and do it? I don't know. It was just a very oddly kind of edited moment, which again, I wasn't entirely a fan of that sequence. But again, most of the editing and again, the sound design, the production design, I don't think it's going to be everybody's cup of tea. Again, it's not always there. What I do appreciate is it fucking cracks on at a decent pace. It's just a little under 2 hours, or a little over 2 hours, which is great, but it never like drops that kind of that pace. You know, you're like, right, we're doing this tonight. Are you going to join us? Off we go to the races. Done. We're in. This is it. I really enjoyed Oliver Platt as being kind of the kind of how do I describe him? He's kind of the fast talking, wise cracking kind of self-important. He thinks he's going to be this grand, you know, author and med student. He's going to be famous, but he's also the one who kind of brings a lot of the levity. I honestly think if you cut Billy Baldwin out of the film, I think it would have been fine. I don't think you needed Billy Baldwin. He's not the strongest actor in the world. You know, he's a decent. He was a decent Batman. I'll say that in Crisis on Two Earths. If you watch that animated film, I think he's decent in that. But yeah, there's not many films I've seen him in go, wow, Billy Baldwin. You know, round of applause, Billy Baldwin. But I think it was just the character and the idea of his sins. And again, like some of the hauntings aren't like, you know, Keith Sutherland's one seems to be really horrific. It physically, Billy Mahoney, this Billy physically attacks him, you know, but nobody else really gets physically attacked. They're just kind of visited or haunted by these people, and like Billy Baldwin just has women coming up to him, like trying to kind of flirt with him or being really creepy and weird, like a man would, which I think was quite an interesting dynamic. But I thought it should have gone further. It should have gone, you know, because again, he's a horrible character, even though he's presented as this kind of, again, it's presented negatively, but not negatively enough for me, what he's doing and who he is. And again, there's a lot of lines from Oliver Platt which kind of make you laugh at it or like, you know, make light of it kind of thing. And it's like, it's not a cool thing to be doing this, you know. So yeah, I just feel like that should have been a more, I don't know why Nelson is getting the worst of it, basically, when I feel like Billy is the worst guy there. Billy's character, I can't remember his name. But yeah, I kind of just, it felt strange to me, you know. But yeah, it is what it is. And again, it's an enjoyable film. It's really good. It's, you know, I think most people like it. I don't hear a bad word said about it often. I think people are quite keen on it. I think it works. It's atmospheric. It's different. It's interesting. I think, again, the script isn't the strongest, but I think the cast make it believable and have you buy into it and buy into this world and this idea and this experiment. And again, it could easily, I think, fall apart. Again, if you look at the 2017 film, you can see why certain things don't work and do work. But yeah, if you're looking to this film for like an absolute answer to, you know, is there an afterlife? What does it look like? Which god is the god you'll go to? Will you be judged? Is there a hell? You know, you're not going to get that answer here. And I think that was probably the best bet. I did look up some of the kind of timings for when you die and like how long you can die for. So it says you can flatline and survive for 4 minutes and 20 seconds. How long can your heart stop without damage? It's 8 minutes. Permanent brain damage would occur in 4 minutes. A man has survived for 96 minutes without a heartbeat, but I guess that's on various, you know, life support systems. Can you survive? Your heart stops for 20 minutes. By 9 minutes of delay, severe and permanent brain damage is likely to occur after 10 minutes. So I think Nelson at the end of the film wants to confront or atone for his sins. He decides to confront Billy Mahoney and goes under himself, and all of them, all the other med students are rushing there to sort it out and to kind of save him as best they can, but he's been under for 10 minutes. So they did speak to a lot of people who deal with this sort of thing. They had advisors who told them how to use, you know, how to operate, how to work as a team, how to use the medical equipment so it's accurate and it looks right. How long can CPR keep someone alive? Healthcare professional determines when it is time to stop, typically after 20 minutes of continuous unsuccessful resuscitation efforts. So yeah, there's some here, but yeah, I think you do have to suspend your disbelief a little bit towards the end. But again, those kind of figures do say that you could technically be under for 10 minutes without massive problems. but there will be some damage, some heart damage or brain damage. And again, if you look at the 2017 film, Kiefer Sutherland's character is walking around with a cane, so that would indicate that his body is not quite what it was when he went under that time at the end of that film, which again is an interesting little nod if you know about the deleted scene. But yeah, overall, I really like this film. I still like it, but I understand why people might not, or they might think it's a bit maybe lofty or a bit thinky or something like that. But I think it works. I think they've got a great cast, good-looking people. Again, it does have its problems. It's not perfect. It's more I think it's more the story elements and the writing for me, more so than and maybe the flatlining sequences do get a little repetitive as well. We could have done with maybe some more variety there, perhaps. Different problems occurring under different people, maybe, or maybe somebody has an allergic reaction to something, or their body isn't quite ready for something, or they have to try a different technique, maybe just vary it up there. So I understand the critiques, but I like this film, and I still like it. I still think it's good. I still think it's one of Schumacher's best. I would check it out. It is spooky, but it's also fun and entertaining. And yeah, the only other thing I had an issue with was there's a bit where Nelson's being attacked in David's van, in Kevin Bacon's character's van, and he's been attacked. David runs in, Kevin Bacon, and he sees he's been attacked in the back of the van, which is just a canvas top to the van, so like an army van sort of thing. So all you have to do is lift the canvas at the back of the van to get in. But for some reason, he breaks the side window, opens the door that's locked so that he can't get in through. But I guess maybe the ghost is keeping it locked, or maybe he would do the same. The ghost would keep it locked. It's not even a ghost, is it? A sin or apparition, whatever you want to call it. Maybe he's keeping the back held down, that tarp or canvas as well. I don't know, but it was just a very odd choice. I thought, there you go, they have it. Also, Bacon leaves Sutherland alone in the van after he specifically, and Sutherland's okay with this, and Sutherland specifically says, I don't want to be alone. Why wouldn't you go in as well? Like, that would be more interesting, I think, if where like David's trying to get atonement for this, and then he's kind of like, I don't believe in atonement, I don't believe in this is stupid, what are we doing here, David? I think that would make a more interesting conversation, and David would have to go out of his way to convince the now grown woman that he is there truly to make amends. I think that would have been more interesting, but no, instead we have to contrive a reason for Nelson for Kiefer Sutherland to be in the car, be in the van, and get attacked by Billy Mahoney again. Again, I like the Billy Mahoney sequence, top tier stuff. I like a good creepy kid, and Billy Mahoney is definitely one of the creepy ones. I think that's maybe where that interest and fascination comes from for me. To be kind of haunted by your bullies is kind of very interesting. I did get a little bit of a Stand By Me vibe as well, like with the flashback sequences, which Kiefer Sutherland was in, as the bully, and maybe some of it as well, a little bit. I think that came out the same year, that miniseries, I believe. So yeah, I kind of got a little bit of that kind of Stephen King-esque vibe, which is, again, not a bad thing at all. Yes. So yeah, that is it for me. I've got nothing else to say about it. Check it out. I think it's a good, fun, spooky, good time, which will leave you kind of asking some questions. Again, if you're going in thinking it's a horror film, an out-and-out horror film, you might be disappointed. But I think it's a fun thriller with very spooky things going on, just in time for spooky season. Thank you again, guys. You can find me at spiderdownthesecretboards.com as always, and don't forget to use the hashtag #PrepareForPrattle when you interact with us. I'd like to thank my patrons on Patreon: Tony Farina, I Am Jax Musen, Simon Cotton, Paul Mellon, Mike Burton, Angry Andy, Tonya Todd, Math, Scott Hodgson, Ria Carrigan, and Sarah Coyne. Thank you for your continuing donations. It is very much appreciated and helps Prattle World keep on turning. And if you ever find yourself in a position to help the podcast, please consider it. Thank you again, guys. And as always, prepare for Prattle.